Welcome to Action Sports World, where this week we'll head to South Africa to join up to 2,000 paddlers as they tackle an epic event in the world of water sports. 75 miles of wild water between Pietermaritzburg and Durban. It's the Doozy Canoe Marathon. Founded in 1951, the Doozy Canoe Marathon covers roughly 120 kilometres between the cities of Pietermaritzburg and Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. As an event, it's unique as it includes numerous portages where the paddlers carry their craft over land, either to cut out unrunnable rapids and cataracts or to eliminate long loops in the river. Most of these portages are through thick bush on steep and undulating terrain, and several of them are around 4 kilometres in length. It's the biggest canoeing event on the African continent and one of the world's most popular river marathons, attracting between 1,600 and 2,000 paddlers each year.
Well, Dr. Ian Player is the founder of the Doozy Canoe Marathon. His dream in World War II, when they were sitting around a campfire in Italy, I believe, was to create a race or a voyage in memory of the Second World War, very similar to the Comrades Marathon was created after the First World War. And his vision was to paddle from Pietermaritzburg to Durban down the Umsunduzi and Umgeni rivers. There were a few of them that set out, and only Dr. Player made it to Blue Lagoon in Durban in 1951, in fact. So paddling in a K1 year this year in memory of Dr. Player is a great tribute to the voyage that he set out on all those many years ago. And we believe that this year's K1 race will be a fitting tribute to him in view of him passing away late last year.
This race is going to be a special one because it is in memory of him, and we are very lucky that a race of our stature still had the founder of the race with us for as long as we did. It was a privilege.
From the minute I walked into the canoeing community, there was an aura and there was a legacy of Dr. Player wherever you went. But particularly in the last few years, I've been lucky enough to be able to spend some time with Dr. Player. And when one talks about an aura and a presence, people after his death are talking up his greatness. He was one of the greatest South Africans I've ever met, and I've been lucky enough to sit in the room with Nelson Mandela and the like. He exuded the same sort of aura.
Ian Player was, I think he's world known with every single canoeist knows Ian. There's only one word for it. Now I always say to people, explain the word wow. And I'm saying wow.
I still met him at one of the doozies a couple of years. He signed the book for me, and you know, I pulled it out last night. I had a look at a couple of comments that he made, and he just said, Don, have a great day. And I think that's what Ian Player was all about, have a great day.
Probably the biggest formative factor in my life. When I was a teenager, I read his book, and then I did the doozy. I watched the doozy start, and then the next year I was in the doozy myself. And I've never really stopped it. It's changed my life completely, and my whole life has revolved around the doozy since then. So it's huge. He had the most biggest influence on my life than anybody else.
The man's a legend, and he gets to go down the river one more time.
There is a drive inside human beings which one has got to acknowledge, that there is this desire to be better and better and better. If we can only apply it to the environment as well, then I will die happy.
Registration day, less than 24 hours to the start. All the big guns familiarising themselves with the race rules, nerves jangling. It's also clock-in time for every single paddler, grabbing a heaving goodie bag. One of the biggest rule changes was boat weight. Not compulsory at registration, but weigh-in at the end of every day. It's now the paddler's responsibility to race a 12-kilogram K1. Day one dawns, the mist hinting at very hot weather ahead. Day one is where you set up your doozy, the make or break day. Deeply rooted traditions everywhere, like securing your good luck with gift flowers from Ernie Peirce's widow.
You know, when Ernie was very ill and he was dying, he was talking about the race because it was his whole life, this doozy. And I said to him, well, look, as long as I can, I will go down to the start for you. And that is what I have done.
The fact that we're going to be starting a tradition with the playing of his imitation of the fish eagle, which people who heard it live raved about. The minute he did it, the fish eagles came out of the bush and started responding to him. Probably the only human in the country that they would do that to. And the fact that that is going to be to the doozy what Max Trimborn's cockcrow is to the comrades, I think is a fantastic tribute, and he would love it. I think somewhere in a bush, somewhere in a cloud in the sky, he's probably looking down saying, that I like, that's appropriate.
Day one and A batch is off the start line, 42 kilometres, over 10k of it running with the boat. Much banter about the women's race, with a marked shift in the ladies' landscape this year. With no Robin Keim, Abby Olansky or Abby Adey, a new name was destined to be engraved on the women's trophy. The crew's making sure the paddlers are prepared to confront the brutal South African summer sun. Some real veterans and stalwarts of this race getting ready to set off for another doozy.
This is my 25th. This is Joe's 10th, so a very special one for us and a very special cause. So we thought we're going for the charity batch this year.
Hey, I think it's just the fun and the camaraderie on the route. Yes, it really is fun. When the oak is battling, the oaks sort of push them along, and it's fun, you know, and give each other hell, I suppose, as well. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
The doozy is unlike any other race, and many approach it as such. This year, Abby Adey is opting to race the doozy with her dad.
It's just the beauty of the valley, the wildness, all that sort of stuff. You know, the unknown factor, because you never know what the water level's about. So that's a big factor. Yeah.
I'm looking at 120 kilometers of running. The girl I'm doing it for is very ill. She has it's a disease where she can't produce glycogen. She's one of the only ones in the country, and there's 1,000 of them worldwide. And we're just trying to raise funds for her and her family.
The city of Pietermaritzburg abuzz with doozy fever as the race sends the paddlers out into the valley of 1,000 hills. And what an intriguing race there is in store.
My name's Andy, and I'm with Team Eurosteel, and I paddle for NCC. I got into paddling because cricket at junior school wasn't the most exciting sport for me, not gifted with ball sports, but I really enjoy it, and I'm just loving my paddling nowadays.
And indeed, it's Andy Burkett who's the first to reach Ernie Peirce Weir, with Lance Keim right on his rudder, a batch loaded with established and emerging talent. crowd here is always bolstered by Maritzburg College, cheering college old boy Andy Burkett, who's first down the weir, while the women's race leader is Laura O'Donoghue. Just a handful of minutes into the race, the only Paris weir starts the day's adrenaline rush. It's pretty easy, but always complicated by nerves and traffic. Through Alexandra Park, past where Dr. Ian Player started the 1951 inaugural doozy alongside 7 other brave pioneers, and then down to the YMCA weir. 5 boats jockeying for the lead at the head of A batch. Thirty-year-old mother of 2, Laura O'Donoghue, in charge of the women's race already. She's been second 3 times in this race, and already there's a hunger to go one better. The province of KwaZulu-Natal has invested in the next generation of paddlers, and nowhere do you see this better than at the doozy.
Yeah, the Doozy Canoe Marathon is portrayed as the ultimate canoe challenge, and we really want to live up to that particular slogan, if you can call it that, because in the days when Dr. Player set out, the whole route and the whole adventure was totally unknown to him. He didn't know what the water levels were going to be doing. He didn't know what the rapids were doing. He hadn't had the opportunity of tripping the river in advance. There were no roads down to most of the places, so the whole adventure was completely unknown to him. Even in the years when they started racing it, I remember Dr. Player saying once that they used to listen to the river to try and work out what the nature of the rapids were like in front of them. So it must have been an immense challenge to them, and we're really trying to live up to that standard that was set by Dr. Player and keep the doozy as the ultimate canoe challenge. For that reason, we don't cut any of the paths that the paddlers portage over. We don't mark any of the rapids. We try and keep marshalling to a minimum. We try and keep the rules to a minimum to allow paddlers to experience that challenge and to try and relive the same adventure that Dr. Player lived in the 1950s.
Day 1 has 2 4-kilometre-long portages. The first, Campbell's Farm, through the cane fields at Hacklands Farm. Well, there's not a great deal of love for this bit of real estate. The long Campbell's Farm portage from the Bry takeout compulsory this year. Every paddler digging deep and looking forward to arriving at the top of the hill. And as we see, portaging is a learnt skill, as multiple Surf Ski World Series champ David Mock from the Cape is about to discover.
Then you've also got this dynamic of portaging. So it's not really just a race, it's like an adventure race. It must be one of the first adventure races that existed ever. 3 days, 120 kilometers, and there's so much that happens in between Pietermaritzburg and Durban. The intrigue of this race is really what's always attracted me. So I'm so excited for 2015 to finally be able to do my first one. But we'll see, we'll only be able to see when that comes about. So ask me that question again at the top of Campbell's Portage.
No sooner have you dealt with Campbell's than there's the harder Guinea Fowl Portage. One of the record 8 stand-up paddleboard entries, enjoying it though. And we see Sabinella Coella leading at Mission Rapid, 11 kilometres from the end of the stage. And in the women's race, it's all about Laura O'Donoghue, with Epworth schoolgirl Canna Peak in second place.
It's interesting, you know, the stand-up craft, it's a big one, and you know, they've got quite a few K3s that do it, and yeah, you know, it's people wanting to try different challenges, and believe me, to get a stand-up craft to Durban is a significant challenge.
Stand-up paddleboarding originated in Hawaii. It's traditionally an ocean-based sport, but in the last 7-8 years it's moved inland. Lots of people doing it in flat water, they're paddling around for fitness, there's races that are coming up all over the place. Then it went to whitewater as well. About 2008, people started doing whitewater, so instead of taking a canoe down whitewater, they started taking a stand-up down whitewater.
Well, this year there's 9 of us doing it, so there's a little bit more competition. There's quite a range of us doing it, from extreme novices to there's a team of 4 from the States who are coming out. We'll never know until we're actually on the river how competitive these guys are. It's got its advantages, it's also got its disadvantages. The advantages are you're standing up on the board, so you've got a good view of your line down the river. You can also, if you do happen to fall off the board, you don't have to stop and empty your boat. It's a quick back on the board and off you go again. The disadvantages are on flat water with a headwind, because you're basically a sail trying to sail into the wind. Down whitewater, you would normally just change your stance to a little bit more stable, put 1 foot further back. And if there's a chance of you actually hitting a rock, then I would go drop knee. It just lowers your chances of hitting a rock and you go falling forward onto the board.
Okay, so basically the program that the athletes are on, the Lead Athlete Development Program, it effectively takes care of all their high performance needs, from testing, specific testing for their specific sport and their specific age, etc., as well as their medical backing. So we will take care of all their physiotherapy, their biokinetics treatments, doctor's appointments, any x-rays that might need to be taken, and yeah, dietary, every aspect of medical that you can think of, and then then just general assistance with training programs, gym work, and getting them stronger for their specific sport. We've got 13 athletes on the program, and of that, quite a few of them do cross over into the doozy distance, which is great. And Andy Burkett obviously is doing exceptionally well on this doozy this year. And Sibonela Kwela is also being assisted by Prime, and we're very excited about him. He's had a shoulder issue which has come right over the last 2 weeks just before Doozy, and we're really happy for him. We want to develop the next Chad Leclos and the next Bridget Hartley out of this program, and then we'll get the guys coming in underneath and filling those slots as they move on and upwards. And the ideal is obviously translate into Olympic medals and stuff for the country. Great accolades for the country.
Day one in the Kweksimba region, close to Nagle Dam, and four-time champion Andy Burkett has taken the race by the scruff of its neck. It's a new stage record for Berkey, with Lance Kime coming in second and Sibonela Kwela in third. As we've seen, day one on the river has been exceptionally tough, and the war stories afterwards reflected that. However, the story doesn't end there. We'll have more from the Doozy River Race in next week's show.